My name is Dan Finucane, and I'm currently a regent. I love folk music, blues music, and I love singing and playing with other people.
My name is Ian Peoples. I'm a Jesuit regent. I'm kind of a football fanatic. Most of my weekends are spent watching at least a few games. I'm probably one of the biggest Lionel Messi fans.
Hello and welcome back to MagisTalk. I'm your host, Dan Finucane, and I'm joined by my Jesuit brother and co-host, Ian Peoples.
And Happy New Year, everyone, and Happy Feast of Mary, the Mother of God. The good news, we made it to 2023. Who would have thought?
That's right.
This time of New Year, this time of looking forward, is also a great time to look back, though, and to examine the year behind us so that we can also prepare for the year ahead.
That's right. And in today's episode, we want to talk about something that I think everybody makes an attempt at. Even to not do this is kind of making a resolution, but New Year's resolutions. Mm-hmm. And we do these because, I don't know, there's something about starting over and trying afresh. And so what we want to do today is give some ways to frame how we can make these resolutions as prayerful people, mm-hmm. and who we should focus on as we make them.
But before we give a few brief guidelines, 5 or so to be exact, on making New Year's resolutions, Dan, maybe you and I can talk a bit about why it's good to make resolutions, or why do we think people make them? What's, like you talked about, this time to start over, this time to start fresh. And maybe what are some pitfalls we can fall into, which I think one of our steps will get into maybe a pitfall. But so why do you think it's good that we do New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I think it's good to start over. And there's something about being human that I think is probably built into who we are, that we get into habits, right? Mm. So part of it is we can't constantly negotiate our days. We kind of have to have habits. We have to have things that we do that are standard. But we can kind of get into ruts where we have habits that are not so good or not so healthy. And so, mm-hmm. Often people make New Year's resolutions about eating or about exercise.
That's right.
And so I think it's a way for people to kind of reorient themselves and to come up with some better practices, mm-hmm. better ways of being who they really are, who we mm-hmm. really are, at our best. And so I think there's something really good and hopeful about it. Mm-hmm. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think sometimes I feel like it's kind of arbitrary, like, oh, we just picked, I mean, it's a new year, yes, but it's also just like every other day. And every other day we can choose to start a new habit. But there is something about a new year and sort of maybe the challenge of like, all right, the new year, I'm going to eat more vegetables every day. I'm going to
have a better relationship with those vegetables.
With vegetables, yeah. Or I'm going to exercise more, or like to create a new routine. I think there is that opportunity for freshness, for newness, that is just attractive to people, and maybe a reason, like a good reason for people to start maybe trying those better habits. I think a pitfall though is, and we'll get into this a little more, but I think a pitfall is, maybe we get a day or two in and we fail, or mm-hmm. we miss doing a resolution that we said we were going to do. And then that becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy of like telling ourselves that we're no good or something like that, which I have an experience of myself for sure. I remember this last year. I made a resolution I was going to write 500 words every day. You know how many days I wrote 500 words, everybody? Not half of half, not even a quarter of a half of half. There's a few days where I wrote much more than 500 words, but there were many days where I didn't. But I think after missing the first few days, I get into this this mindset where I start like punishing myself by, telling myself that I couldn't live up to the standard that I'd set. And I think that's a real pitfall to be avoided.
Yeah. Can I ask though, do you think you wrote more than you would have
That's a good question.
had you not made the resolution?
That's a good question. I think with it being on my mind, I probably did. So there's that too. See, that's a good way to reframe it. We got to reframe it, right?
All about reframing.
That's right. And another good thing to remember when we make resolutions is we don't do it alone, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're part of a community. We're part of a church. We don't do anything in isolation. And so as we think about these resolutions that we want to make, we remember all the resources that we have at our disposal as Christians, as Catholics. We have the sacraments. We have our community. And it's no mystery that the church dedicates the first day of the new year, the new calendar year, to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And so we remember that she's always there also to help lead us to her Son. So I think with that, I want to get into some of those principles.
Let's do it. So we've got 5 guidelines to making a good New Year's resolution. And our first is to remember who's most important. And we're going to talk about that by talking about the first principle and foundation. So Ian, you're our resident expert.
Is that what I am?
On the first principle and foundation. People at home might be wondering what on earth that phrase means. Maybe you could tell them what is that?
Yeah, the first principle and foundation comes from the spiritual exercises. And it's at the very beginning of the exercises. As you can tell, it's the first principle and foundation. So it's that thing that we have to sort of build everything else off of, right? And so it's a starting point. And so the first principle and foundation, Ignatius writes, is that human beings, people, were created to praise, reverence, and serve God. And by this means to save our souls, right? To spend eternal life with God. And the ways in which we can do this, God has given us everything in order to accomplish this goal, this end that we all have. So no matter what it is, whether it's money or status or whatever it is, everything is supposed to help lead us to God, our health, But if any of these things become an obstacle to our pathway to God, we're supposed to leave them behind, right? So if money becomes an obstacle, if our status, our honor, right, our Facebook likes become an obstacle.
Yeah, that's a big problem for me.
That's right. If any of these good things, right, these otherwise, things that we can use, if they become an obstacle, then we're supposed to sort of leave it to the wayside, right? And Ignatius goes so far to even say that because of this sort of disposition that we have, that we shouldn't desire honor rather than dishonor, wealth rather than poverty, health rather than sickness, a long life or a short one. So it's a pretty radical statement that really our main goal is to be in relationship with God, to spend eternal life with God, and we should desire what helps us get there, right? What helps us fulfill that goal. Why is the first principle and foundation, or how can we use that to start framing maybe resolutions that we want to make, Dan?
Yeah, I think there's a couple steps there. I think one is, we can use this to maybe reflect on, where are those things that we've become too attached to them. So for me, I'm always kind of grappling with how much TV or Netflix I watch. And the reason isn't because Netflix is bad. In fact, there's a lot that's really great that you can watch on streaming. So I'm a huge fan of the show The Chosen, which I think is going to be on Netflix soon.
Oh, really?
I think they just signed a contract, so that's exciting. But The Chosen, it's a great show about Jesus. It's about his followers. Well, anyway, it's great to watch good content, right? But sometimes I do it as a way of avoiding reflecting on my day. Or I do it as a way of, I had a bad day, and I don't actually want to sit with the bad feelings, so I use it as a way of kind of numbing out. So I think in that way, I've had to recognize, okay, maybe this isn't leading me closer to God. There's actually something else that I need to be doing, whether that's just sitting quietly for 15 or 20 minutes, even if I fall asleep, which often happens when I try this, or taking time to pray a little bit more or read a book, something that slows me down and gets me more in touch with how I'm actually doing. And that allows me to, I think, be more in touch with God. So I think it can be, the first step would be to examine, okay, what parts of my life am I a little too attached to certain practices, certain things, maybe certain people even. And then, the other is to then kind of explore what God desires.
That's right.
Right. And to spend some time in prayer, like, are there parts of my life where I've been kind of neglecting certain people? Is there somebody in my family that actually really needs me right now, and I've been kind of avoiding them, and maybe I'm being called to spend more time with them.
Right? That's right. And that's our second principle to kind of keep in mind, is to pray about these things, right? So this first principle and foundation naturally leads into the second principle, which is prayer. We take time to notice what it is in our life that maybe we are putting a little out of order, right? Whether that's Netflix. For me, it's YouTube. That's a big one. There are others, but YouTube.
Except for our channel.
Except for our channel, yeah. I mean,
that's always going to be.
I love rewatching our show.
Yeah.
No, but YouTube, like Reels, where I've deleted all my other social medias, but I get stuck on YouTube for like an hour, and I just compact everything into that. And again, there are great things on YouTube. Like, there are ways in which we can learn. There's ways of connecting with what's going on in the world through it, which are all good, but it can become a waste of time. So again, we bring these things into prayer, and as we ask God, right, to send His Spirit upon us and to help us reflect on what it is that's helping lead us to God, and what's maybe getting in the way, things will naturally come up, I would say, right? Because these things will bubble to the surface. Maybe the stuff that's already kind of in the back of your mind, it's going to become much more obvious. That's actually God's Spirit trying to show you something, right?
Poking you a little bit.
Yeah. That little sting of conscience, maybe, God's always with us, right? And it's sometimes in imperceptible ways. So prayer is where we fine tune the frequency, right, of our thoughts, of our hearts, and we get a better sense of maybe what God's trying to show us. And so bring these things to prayer, and a great way to do that would be an examine.
Yeah, I was just thinking the examine is a great tool, and we have an episode on the examine, so please take a look at that as a little reminder about that prayer. But we've already mentioned it a couple of times, and it's a simple 10-15 minute prayer that you can do each day as a way of reviewing the day to kind of see where God has been and how we've responded. And often it's seeing, okay, where we responded in gratitude, and that's wonderful to savor those moments, especially when we are in a rough patch. But it's also good to recognize where we've kind of looked the other way.
That's right.
Where that poke has been there, but we've kind of said, no, not right.
Yeah, whatever ways we've numbed ourselves to the little whisper of God in our lives. Yeah. And there are myriad ways to go about doing that. Yeah. So, and you will know those ways if you enter into prayer. God will make that obvious to you. A third principle that we want to just encourage you to do is to bring in friends and family. So there might be some things where it's like it's a solo venture, right? If you want to lose weight, well, your friends and family can help you with that maybe, but I'm thinking especially of ways, or maybe with that it could be like, all right, on your daily walk, you want to get more exercise, you take a daily walk, invite your son or your daughter, your husband, wife to go out with you, right? Yeah. And that's not only a time to get good exercise, but a time to connect with one another, all right? So leave the phones behind or put them in your pocket and take time to talk about your day, right? Yeah. Take time to talk about what's going on in your life. Or bring in friends and family in different ways. Let's say a simple prayer could be like, I want to pray a decade of the rosary every day. Well, you can invite your spouse, your kids to do that with you. Again, it's very simple, but again, we're a communal people, so bringing in friends and family is a way to kind of give us strength on the journey, right? Yeah. On the way to sort of pursuing these resolutions that we have. Yeah,
and I think something that's important to remember too is, it's good to have accountability. So especially with food or with exercise, if that's something that you want to resolve to work on. To have somebody that you say, hey, mom, dad, or brother, sister, good friend Ian, whoever it might be, to say like, hey, I'm deliberately working on this. This is my goal, and I would like your help in just asking me, once a week, hey, how's that resolution going? And not in a way. I think when we support one another, it's not to, when we have those moments of failure, falling off, that they're not there to kind of scold us, but they're to help pick us back up. And so picking your friends and family who are going to help you do that and not going to tear you down.
That's right. Yeah.
Although they wouldn't probably be friends if they tore you down.
Exactly. So yeah, we choose people who are going to support us and pick us up and give us strength, right?
That's right.
And a fourth guideline, a fourth principle is to make it attainable, right? We talked about this earlier. We're creatures of habit. That's people are, right? So small daily habits are great ways to start. Are great ways to kind of lay the first building block, right? And these are simple. It could be simple things like I'm going to write in a gratitude journal every day. It could be one sentence. I'm going to pray 5 minutes in the morning, right? Or I'm going to pray a decade of the rosary every day, like I said, or read a paragraph of sacred scripture every day. But we do small attainable things so that it's easier to not excuse ourselves from doing that thing, right? I remember, talking about fitness, which might be a resolution that a lot of people have. It talks about sort of doing the small things in the morning or whenever you're preparing to exercise, right? Maybe you want to go walking every day or go running every day, right? But some days you don't feel like it, right? And so
most days.
But you break that down. You break that down like, all right, I'm just going to put on one shoe, right? I'm going to put on another shoe. And pretty soon you got your running shorts on and you're like, well, I got my stuff on. I might as well go running. So you break that simple thing down into even smaller things, right? Yeah. And so these are just ways in which we can help give ourselves a little boosts of energy towards the thing that we want to do.
Yeah, and I think keeping it small also allows for feeling victorious.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like so I'm not going to run 10 miles because that would be a lot, but I am going to do one, and then after you've run that 1 mile, like, good for you. High five to you. You did it. And
go eat that tub of ice cream, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Erase all the work you did after that. No, but then, maybe next, you do that for a week. And then the next week you say, I'm going to try 1.5 or 2 miles. So I ran a marathon a few years ago, which I had never thought I would do. And the whole point of it is that you start really small. You don't start by running 20 miles. You start with like 1 or 2. That's right. You build yourself up.
And you start like months before, right?
Months before. So it's slow. And and because, as you were saying, when we build habits, it takes time. That's how they become habits, is that they're repeated, and it's much easier when they're smaller to repeat them and to want to do them after a while.
That's right.
Yeah.
And lastly, and we kind of alluded to this earlier, is don't give up. Don't give up. So we have that friends and family to give us support and courage. We do small, attainable things so that we can celebrate the victories, even if they're seemingly small victories, to give us more energy going forward. But don't give up, even if there's maybe, even a long span of time in which you kind of drop your New Year's resolution. Again, January 1st is kind of arbitrary, right? So even if you make that resolution and it falls off to the wayside for a little while, it could be March, it could be June, and once you remember that resolution, remember that there's nothing to stop you from starting again, right? And so don't let this January 1st be an arbitrary date. That's the only date that you can kind of make these firm resolutions to change. And if you fail in that, then, well, I guess I can't do those things. No, you can start again, right? Yeah. As Rocky Balboa said, right? It's not how many times you fall. It's how many times you get back up. That's what defines you.
That's right. Rocky Balboa is our patron this week on our show.
Right. He's Italian. He's probably Catholic.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. That's right.
We're talking about fitness, though. Rocky is.
We're in that ballpark, so to speak.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. No, I think that's really true, and it's so interesting in the work that we do at the prison. I often taught the guys who are, I mean, they wouldn't call them New Year's resolutions, but they're talking about things that they're working on, and it's always inspiring to me to hear from guys who have things that have plagued them for years, and they've gotten to a point because they've prayed with it where they will say, I fell off the wagon, but I'm getting back up, and I know that this is just another invitation to rely on God. So I think that's ultimately the great. It's a paradox, right? But when we do fall off the wagon, it's a reminder that we're not just on our own, right? And that we need God's help, even in the things that might seem simple or the things that we think, well, I should be able to do this. This resolution is seemingly really easy, but we need help. And so it's not just asking for friends and family's help. That's awesome. The Spirit works through them too. But again, in prayer each day to kind of bring that back into conversation with God.
That's right. So just a quick review of our 5 principles. So remember who is most important. That's God and Jesus Christ, the first principle and foundation. Then you pray about it. You pray about what's keeping you from that close relationship with God. You bring in friends and family, especially those who are going to be really great supports for you and give you strength and courage. You make it attainable. And finally, you don't give up, right? No matter how long it's been or whatever it may be, that you start again if you need to, right? And like Dan said, we know people, and I think we probably all know people, our viewers included, all know people who, have struggled for years, but have refused to give up, right? And those people, even their struggle can inspire, right? Because if all the odds are set against somebody, or they've been plagued by something for years and yet they don't give up, then that can inspire us to keep going in our difficult moments that we all have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've got a question for you.
Okay.
What's your New Year's resolution?
New Year's resolution.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? We're filming this 3 weeks before. So
yeah. So
you may not have thought about it.
I've thought about it a little bit. I've thought about it a little bit. I mean, there's a few things, but small, attainable things that I'm thinking. I would really like to read more novels. I have not read a whole lot of novels recently. I read a lot of nonfiction. So I do read a lot of nonfiction, like spirituality books and religious books, but not a lot of novels. And novels really tell the story of a human heart, right? In a fictional account, but hopefully it's telling something true about people, right? And that's why they're powerful, because they help tell, describe, reveal the human condition, right? And so I'd like to read one novel a month. Okay. Right, and that's I don't think that's too big, right? I think that's still attainable because novels tend to be 250 pages, maybe 300, right? So over the course of 30 days, if I say, I can break it down. My Kindle even tells me how long it takes to read a book, so I can say, I'll spend 30 minutes on a Saturday reading this novel, and maybe 30 minutes on a Sunday, and that should get me, if a novel is 5 hours to read, then I should be able to do that more or less in a month. So I would say one novel a month. I think that would be good.
That's cool that your Kindle talks to you.
It does. Yeah. No, they're smart devices.
They really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It tells you how long it's going to take to read a chapter, how long it will take to read a book. It calculates your reading speed based on how fast you're turning the page. Yeah. High tech.
Yeah.
So throwing that question back at you, even though we got 3 weeks to think about it, so it might change. Yeah. What's a New Year's resolution that you have?
So I've got 2 that I'm kind of sitting with. One that I've been wanting to do just in general, but maybe the New Year's a good time to try it out, to read more poetry. So maybe a poem a day. And not because, I often don't completely understand what I'm reading. I think I find some poetry kind of opaque, but it opens up my imagination in a way that few things do, and I took a poetry class a couple years ago that really was just fun and getting into writing poetry. And I don't know, it's just different. It's not, I don't know, it's not goal oriented. It's not task oriented. It's just sitting with something that maybe is a little more mysterious, maybe not. Maybe it's fun, who knows. But to do that each day. The other that I'm sitting with is doing more art. I like to do art.
He's very talented.
But I rarely take time these days. I think I did art for the first time a couple weekends ago that I'd done it in like months. So, maybe once a week or maybe once a month.
Yeah.
Just doing something. But yeah.
All right. Well, with that first resolution, I write some poetry. If you want some reading material,
we could have a little poetry corner.
Poetry corner. Oh, if you all want to hear our poetry, let us know.
If you don't, we understand.
I wrote a collection of sonnets. I'm just saying.
Wow.
Yeah, it was for a class.
Really? Wow.
I did. It was for a class. But,
okay.
And they're not great. They're no Shakespeare, but they're fun. Yeah.
There's only one Shakespeare.
Well,
so
we think.
Maybe there's three. Kind of literary criticism for another day. But.
All right. Well, let us know what resolutions you're making this year on Facebook or YouTube. If you have those resolutions, let us know so we can pray for you, right? Again, we're a community, so we can pray for one another. So pray that Dan reads some more of my poetry and pray that I find some good novels to read. And,
that's right.
And again, we want to wish you a Happy New Year. And we have some special guests coming up.
We do.
We have some special guests coming up that may or may not be related to Dan Finucane.
That's right. And our next episode is very special. Even before those special guests.
That's right. Extra special. This is the 49th episode.
It is.
Oh, the next is the 50th episode.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. So get ready for that. Tune in.
They haven't canceled us yet. So here we are.
Thanks for being with us, everyone. Have a great day. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.